Good morning. I guess we're going to start. It's really like feeling like teaching a university college. They keep coming in until the end, I guess. So keep the door open. Welcome you all that you have chosen this marketing session. It's all about marketing. It's about networking. I may say a welcome on behalf of VNU Media, and that used to be a big company, but it's now a trade publisher still in Haarlem, where it was situated for about 80 years before. It's going to Amsterdam next year, I guess. United Dutch Publishers, and has its roots in magazine publishing, still does magazines. A short introduction. At the start of Planet Internet, which we started about 13-14 years ago, we assured each other that content is king. We try to keep that mantra, as we are journalists, as long as possible. Meanwhile, we, the content makers, we were paid by connections. This is still the case today. I guess not content is king, but networking is king. And that's why I'm glad we have today 3 companies who will have their future in networking. They started in games, in navigation, in mobile services, but in the end they all will be networking companies and maybe also meet each other. They will come in each other's arena. And that might be of interest. I hope in the end we can have some discussion how they will be competitors of each other. It's an honor to me to introduce as a first speaker the branding manager of Blyk. I don't have to say Blyk nor Blyk, but Blyk. It's Finnish, I hope, but you can explain. Marko Ahtisaari, to you is the floor.
Good morning, everyone. It's a real joy to be here in the energetic city of Rotterdam. And I will jump right in. The brief was to discuss with you key trends in mobile and marketing and how they're affecting marketing, and partly through the case of Blyk, though I won't focus only on that. I am responsible for brand and service design at Blyk. Blyk, you may have heard of, is building a pan-European free mobile network for young people, for 16 to 24-year-olds funded by advertising. We're live in the UK for a year. As of today, I'll talk a little bit about that later, and launching imminently in the Netherlands. This is Blyk, that's how it's pronounced. About myself, I also serve on the boards of Artek, Alvar Aalto's furniture company, very old business, and Doppler, a social network for business travelers, the most frequent travelers in the world, and F-Secure, an online security company. One other thing I think I share with the Dutch is in my spare time I practice ice swimming, which after a long day in the telecom and media industry, all of it's left behind when you jump in. And apparently you do that here once a year or so. 4 topics: mobility, youth, marketing as conversation, and how to make meaning in this new environment. Starting first with mobility, I'll discuss 4 big themes. One is scale, bigness, hybrid nature of mobile phones, personal nature, and the social nature. Starting with scale and bigness, Rem Koolhaas, who has offices here but spends most of his life on an airplane around the world, the great architect, talks a lot about scale, bigness, extra large or extra, extra large. And really the mobile industry grew so fast that it's almost numbing. It's very difficult to see the growth from the inside. How is it possible that an industry grows to 3 billion unique subscribers, if you want to use internet language, in this time frame? And here's a quick revisionist history of why this is possible. It's not often told this way, but my view is that it was an industry with an object with a social function tied to a service. Much like the discussion of the internet now centering around social interaction, mobile is the most socially interactive platform. Secondly, there were service providers subsidizing price, mainly mobile operators, subsidizing the price of the device so end customers didn't actually see the full price in exchange for a contract or a longer-term deal. And third, which is often not mentioned, but it was a shift from a familiar collective object to a personal object. The concept of a personal phone just did not exist 20 years ago, and now it's completely normal. How will we explain to our children that before, when you had to make a phone call, you had to stand next to a wall? Now, this is part of the invisibility and the force of the change. This is a picture from an old Nokia research project which has been discussed in public, so I can share it, but basically across many, many, many cultures, looking at what people always carry with them, the mobile essentials, if you like. And the phone, if you have it, is one of them. The others are some form of payment and keys. Now, I mentioned 3 billion. The next 2 billion, of course, will come largely new subscribers from what have been called the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China. And that, I think, from a service evolution point of view, will be very significant. But I won't focus on that here today. Second point, hybrid. With this growth that is so fast that it's hard even to see from the inside, means that the mobile platform is like a magnet. It pulls functionality to it because of its scale. And if we look here at the same picture, what's on the screen? How many of you woke up to your phone this morning? Okay. Now, in this respect, we're probably the only respect we're similar to our use as teenagers on phones. But the watch is the most used, perhaps the most used function on a mobile device. We don't talk about it because it's not in the average revenue per user telecom business system. So if you could charge every time you looked at the clock, they would, but they can't. And so we don't talk about it. But de facto in the usage of daily life, it's key. And there you see the time and date on the phone. It's also an increasingly personal object, and that's part of the challenge when we talk about marketing on the mobile. People often talk about how mobile phones can't be personalized or customized the same way that a PC can. Actually, I think it's very PC-centric thinking. The mobile phone is the most tuned platform on the planet, and you see it in the form of this little strappu on the phone, the little accessory. In Finland, middle-aged engineers already have the straps on the phones, walking the corridors of Nokia. This is a sign of progress. And it's a general way of personalizing. It started with color covers, in this case 3 ABC covers, 3 covers, color combinations. But it's also extended into software. This is an old software skin for the Series 60 operating system. Now, this is pinups. Maybe it's certainly not my thing. Maybe it's not anyone's thing in this room, but that's not the point. It's somebody's thing. And through that, they express themselves. It would be a mistake to think that this is only a phenomenon of the North. This is iconography from India, from an exhibit called Used in India from the Center of Knowledge Societies. In India, there's a tradition of adding LEDs and flashing LEDs to religious iconography, so Guru Nanak Dev Ji becomes a little bit more special when you add the lights. Okay? But this same phenomenon extends to the super FM radio player, which becomes a little bit more super when you add the lights to it. And finally, it's a complex ecosystem of companies. So this is a poster from Britgo and Britgo, a mobile phone repair and servicing chain all across India. It's a circuit diagram of the Nokia 8850. No one acknowledges that this kind of things happened officially and it's not condoned, but basically you can take your phone in and have it tuned up. So your phone can become a car door opener, and rumor has it you can turn a smartphone into an insect repellent. Fourth, social. If it is true that the growth of mobility was built around a social function, which is true, I also believe that's the case for the internet, but it means that it is a relevant question to ask about the mobile platform is what forms of social interaction will happen there in addition to texting and calling, which are mass applications already. And I'll just give a few examples. This is background. 2 years ago, Time chose as the person of the year you. They say you control the information age, both in the sense of creating media and choosing what kind of media to consume, so filtering it for yourself. And if that's true on the web, looking at those patterns is relevant. This is a quote from Donald Norman, psychologist and designer, and I'll just read it in full. Technology changes while people's needs remain the same. When it comes to communication products, the killer app is always anything that enhances social interaction, keeping in touch with friends, family, and colleagues. This has been true since the invention of mail. Telegraph and telephone, email and SMS are simply the most recent examples. Social interaction is the universal killer app. What could that mean? One is we know certain things are online breaking as major forms of interaction and offline in some cases. The gift exists in every culture. The Japanese wrap theirs more beautifully than the Finns, but we still give gifts. There are rules about how they're given, and digital gifts on the whole on the mobile platform have not been fully utilized. The photo stream pattern, which is the Flickr pattern or the Facebook photos pattern, instead of me sending the photo to you directly on mobile phone, which has not yet taken off, partly because photos need more explanation. What has taken off is you putting the photo in a stream online where people can go and watch it when they want and comment and give meaning to that. And finally, I come back to this pattern more, is what I call signaling. It's a name sometimes used to describe team behavior on mobile phones in Japan, but basically it's the phenomenon of the Facebook status line. Who here is on Facebook? Who here uses the Facebook status line? The status line is the small line where you say what you are doing, all right? And Twitter, which is the same functionality but outside of Facebook and growing healthily, and instant messaging. Oh, Mark Cantor is registering use. Yes. Okay. That about mobility as the background, about the scale of it, what that scale means for the platform bringing functionality onto it, starting with the clock, but of course now going to cameras and other functionality in mainstream use. This personal nature of the platform and the social nature of it. Now, youth. I'm not going to take too much time telling you what today's youth are. Many of you spend a lot of time on it, but here are clearly some of the headlines. They're digitally native, meaning that many human relationships are run online, in tandem with real life, knowledge-driven, especially early information, exclusivity, collaborative. They are on social networks of different kinds, and there will be new social networks as well. One thing I think it's very important to say that people move from one to another. The game is not over. There isn't only one or two. The social interaction need will continue, and so there'll be competition for that need. Socially fragmented, many, many different tribes, early adopting and self-promoting, as you see there. But I'd like to focus, if you look at this, for young people, particularly 16 to 24-year-olds, the mobile phone is always there, even in a more extreme way than it is for the people in this audience today. And particularly, I will say something which disconnects slightly with this audience, is if you look at the actual de facto usage of young people on phones today, it is primarily driven by text, voice, and the clock, and personalization of the phone. Most of the other big data-rich services that you hear a lot of talk about in the industry are still minority use cases. Some of them are growing, and I'm not saying they are not going to grow. There are many reasons they haven't happened. Some have to do with data pricing, a lot of other things. But if you really look at the mainstream usage today, that's what the usage is. One thing in response to youth is, I think, a key opportunity and a trend is applications that focus around a very, very simple value. Simplicity is a good thing, not a drawback. Here's an example of the status line. So this is the Facebook status line where I can say, answer that question, what are you doing right now? Twitter does the same pattern. Recently, Facebook redesigned around this functionality, which I think to me says it's indicative that it is one of the only, or one of the, and maybe one of the only remaining addictive features in Facebook, because the threshold to do it is so low. Now, you may find, for those of you that, there were about 20 of you using either Facebook or Twitter. How many of you use instant messenger on a regular basis? Do you sometimes change the line underneath to say what you're doing? That's the same pattern. That's the same pattern, the signaling out to the ambient awareness of what's going on. And while this may seem weird, I urge you all to read an article from the New York Times Magazine 2 weekends ago by Clive Thompson called The Brave New World of Digital Intimacy, where for the first time someone in mainstream journalism explains this weird phenomenon to the rest of the world in a way that maybe we can understand it. And these kinds of articles are important. But this is simple. And Evan Williams, who started Twitter, asked the question this way: what can we take away to create something new? Notice it's not the way generally the technology industry thinks. The technology industry normally thinks, what fairly irrelevant feature could we add to charge more for our product? I put it in a strong way, but the industry isn't built to prune and to simplify things. What this means for marketing to youth means keeping the offer simple, keeping the communication simple, and focusing on the quality of the user experience so that people can talk about the service to others. What's commonly called word of mouth. But in order for there to be word of mouth, there has to be something simple enough to communicate onwards. It requires a certain degree of confidence. That's from the Blyk brand book, which we call the Blyktionary. But the Blyktionary says we're confident. You know, that's not a picture of me, but it means that you need to be confident and strong enough to stand behind a simple proposition and not think that that's a drawback. In the Blyk case, I want to say that one angle for us to manage the business is actually through the life cycle and user experience of people joining the service and being on the service. How they discover it, how they join, how they start the first 30 days of use, how they use it over time, how they become more active creators on the network, how they invite their people, and how they leave. Because we built Blyk in a way that if you'd rather have a phone bill, you can go elsewhere. It's okay. Let me show you a little bit about how we've put that on Blyk. The way Blyk works is it's an invitation-only network, but to seed the network, we went to schools and universities. You could find invite codes and you join. You go online. You tell us a little bit about yourself, but this is only the first time you profile yourself because it's a constant conversation. So this is like the first starting line, the first 10 yards of the marathon. Then you get the SIM in the mail. It's a SIM-only proposition. You need to bring your phone with you because Blyk is footing the biggest phone bill in the history of Europe. So it's okay that you pay for your phone. You understand that, right? And we are very open about that, very open and frank. I come back more to the Blyk experience. But another way to do it might be to talk about utility, which is beauty plus utility. The way my wife, Lisa Sonio, who runs Doppler, says that maybe even the logo can change. And so every city in the world where you travel has a different color. And the logo of Doppler changes according to that. It's like a little delighter that people notice. It's beautiful. Every time it's recognizable, but it's somehow you mixed in with the brand. Another way would be to actually have the youth conversation in terms of how the brand is made. We've taken a very open code in Blyk to the identity. We took the mark and gave it to a class of illustrators at London College of Communications, held a competition, 300 entries for our corporate identity, all with fair rules and agreement to purchase the identity, and it ended up with 13 identities. All we told them was the mark, and it's about free and communication and openness. We didn't tell them about mobile phones so that everyone would be drawing happy people with phones on their ears. And this way we take a very loose, there's like a loose optimistic wrapper around a hard core, which is our values, the mark. And that hard core is like the, if you like, Linux kernel of the operating system that then you can version. Third, conversation. I'm going to show you two quotes from two persons I greatly respect. Ray Ozzie is the chief architect at Microsoft Corporation. He wrote this in 2005. Both of these quotes are from there. A new business model has emerged in the form of advertising-supported services and software. This model has the potential to fundamentally impact how we and other developers build, deliver, and monetize innovations. No one yet knows what kind of software and in which markets this model will be embraced, and there's tremendous revenue potential in those where it ultimately is. And obviously here what Ray Ozzie is referring to is software as service and the things that companies like Google are doing in the software space, offering everything there as a service, a free service in the cloud, and coming back to that. But for that matter, also search is an example of that, something that feels free. But then, what is the kind of advertising or commercial communication that fits into such a tool? Tim O'Reilly, founder of O'Reilly Publications, said it this way. Doc Searles famously remarked that markets are conversations. It seems to me that advertising ought to be a conversation as well, only it's normally a conversation with a bore or a drunk at a cocktail party. Someone who backs you into a corner, talks incessantly about himself, and laughs too loud at his own jokes. So that's the challenge. The other challenge is this, that the common view of what advertising can be is still governed by pictures like this. This is the Flashmatic tuning machine by Zenith. Only Zenith has it. I think it's from 56. You can also shut off long, annoying commercials while picture remains on screen. And this is the dominant view, perhaps, that it's something that is annoying, that is interruptive. If we are to make those software as service or service-funded, free service-funded by advertising models work, it has to be beyond that. And I believe in this kind of blur, and I'll show the examples from Blyk as an evidence of that. It is a blur between advertising, information, and endorsement or recommendation. I think these distinctions, or trying to hold fast to them, the distinctions are melting away. This shows both in the attempts to monetize social networking in terms of inserting ads in different parts of the social interaction. But it shows in the Blyk case after we launched, and also before the launch, we ran 5 trials testing the service. And what really surprised us was that people discussed the ads as a service. They discussed it as information. That's the language they used, the young people used to describe what it was, completely unprompted by us. And that's, I think, without our intent, that's the perception of the service. Now here I give some examples. You notice the Blyk mark in the upper right-hand corner. It has a little symbol called the caret. The caret forms a part of the daily interaction with the service. Whenever you see that at the end of a commercial message coming from Blyk, you know that you can reply. You don't have to reply, but you know that you can reply. The deal with Blyk is this. Every month, when you're on the network, you get a certain amount of free texts and minutes in exchange for receiving up to 6 ads a day, and they are always coming into your inbox. There's no advertising in the phone calls themselves. Our design principle was 90% familiar user experience, 10% new. People don't want their calls interrupted. They come as inbox messages, and sometimes they ask you to reply. And you can reply if you want to or not. Let me give an example. So here's a message coming in to a woman interested in cosmetics. It comes in just like a message normally. And messaging is the most dominant pattern, after looking at the clock, of mobile use that exists in this age group. It's a picture message from L'Oreal showing 5 celebrities. Which of these celebs are you the most like? You answer 2, just like you would reply to a friend. It's texting the same way. You get a new message, and then Blyk, or L'Oreal via Blyk, L'Oreal inside Blyk says, then you'd shoot have a shade of color rich Star Secrets caramel. Now, what is this in the blur? This is information or a recommendation from a brand that admittedly knows something about cosmetics. Of course, they also sell it. But you replied. If you didn't reply, the conversation doesn't continue. Another example, Stepstone, job alerts only with SMS. Need a job? Stepstone may have just what you're looking for, currently looking for work. Yes, no? Yes, I am. Okay, what kind of job? What kind of job are you after? Full-time, part-time, or holiday job? You answer. Well, then it says a little bit more about what Stepstone has to offer, and you can sign up for SMS alerts. We can also offer full click-to-call functionality there as well. What's interesting is that there is a byproduct of the dialogues we have with people, which is that we start learning more and more and publishing back what we learn from our members, as the 16 to 24s on the Blyk network are called, and we send it back to them. We hear what they think about Kate Moss. 60% said doghouse over catwalk. On politics, how many voted in the last election? On their favorite jeans, on hangover cures, top 10 travel destinations, on buying music. And this is what Blyk does in the ongoing conversation, is learning more and more, which then is interesting to some brands talking to them and is interesting to the membership as well. And that's very important, feeding back that information, because that is their information just as much as it is Blyk's. And here, another kind of example is driving awareness and consideration via a teaser. So in this case, do you want to see Will Ferrell's new comedy, Semi-Pro? It's starting on this date, so you've told them when it's out in the theaters. Very relevant for movies, also very relevant for music, because awareness of music artist brands is high, but awareness of releases and their dates is low, as you know. And so you drive awareness, consideration with the priming through the question, with high positive response rates. Finally, I come to meaning, because I strongly believe that brands for the youth market today can only be built on openness and a straight win-win in that way. Blyk has always been an overtly commercial proposition, and what I mean by this is we say, come in, you can join if you're 16 to 24-year-old, you have to bring your phone, you have to keep your settings on, your phone on, we're going to send ads. Ads pay for the free communication. If you want to text and talk more, you can top up. This is the deal. Nothing's binding you to be here. If you instead want a phone bill, go elsewhere. So we're not trying to lock in and just keep it extremely straight and open. And this kind of a win-win where people understand the model also makes people talk about the model on to other people. Why I mean this is, free is interesting to everybody in some way, but free is not meaning. And that's one of the reasons we chose an approach in the UK to really launch via no mainstream marketing, not screaming free. Because if you walk down Oxford Street in London, you will see free next to 5,000 text, 1,000 minutes. These are slightly high numbers. But then there's 5 asterisks after it saying, only if you top up for £20 on a Friday, walking backwards on Oxford Street when it's raining. And that's the kind of thing, that's the level at which the offers are in the telecom industry, and we can do better than that. So we're not going to scream free. We deliver it, focus on the user experience, and let people talk about it. We announced yesterday we reached 200,000 young members in the UK, double what our first year target was. And our first year will be done on September 24th. And of the awareness of people that are aware of Blyk, over half are aware from a friend or being invited to the network. Relevance will be built from something else other than free. Free is interesting to join, but the relevance has to come from the advertising perceived as a service over time. And that's where the brands trying to reach young people through us make the difference in the quality of that communication. Here's just another example, and I specifically picked something that was very successful, but you think of relevance is a sampler of Lucozade, is that relevant? Well, sometimes it is. It's very relevant to the brand, and here you have an opportunity, last chance to get a free bottle of Lucozade energy drink. Click on. In industries where sampling and tasting is extremely important to convert, this worked very well. 35% of voucher requests for 1% of media spend. So again, what we did here as well is we talked a little bit about what a mobile voucher is and how it could work, and how it could work for you. Finally, in terms of meaning, why I do Blyk is we want to unite young people and advertisers to free communication. I'd like it to be unlimited free. It doesn't work that way. That's not a responsible way to run a business. We launch with something which we think we can do, and as the membership grows and the community grows, we communicate with them what's going on. They understand the model, and being open about that model is critical. And so this is what we want to do. And as said a bit earlier, we've also announced that we will launch in the Netherlands later this year or early next year, and building out the team. So if we want to do this, the question is, do you? Eric Kip, who's the managing director in Netherlands, is seated there. Do you want to? So for all interested parties in the Blyk proposition, or also the team, please talk to Eric. And now I would like to turn it over to questions. Thank you.
Is there a question in the audience? We start with...
Can you also identify yourself, please?
Huub Jansen. I'm not working in your industry, but very related. I'm working in the payment industry, which is also an emerging market when you talk about mobile. I have one question about how you go to the market. It seems to be you bring out SIM cards, supposed to be white-labeled SIM cards from one of the common providers in a specific region. So you're eating up their customers by entering people into your customer base. How do you work together with, let's say, a company like T-Mobile in Germany or KPN here in Holland?
I think very, very good question. So Blyk technically is what's called a mobile virtual network operator, which means we partner with a host network operator and, if you like, buy wholesale the text and the minutes and the data, and then find a new way to monetize it. In the UK, we work with Orange. In the Netherlands, we work with Vodafone, so a different carrier each time. And basically, the relationship is win-win. So they would say that for this youth market, they believe that partnering with Blyk is a better way to service those customers and bring them on. So they, of course, that's fully open. They understand that there may be some young people that they have obviously 16 to 24-year-old customers as well. Typically someone looking at to compete with a youth, other youth network.
But you're losing in that perspective customer intimacy for instance, for Vodafone, because they're losing a customer.
In the sense, but they're making money from us from wholesale payment.
Okay.
One thing while we're going to get the question is the reason I didn't emphasize it is the fact that we're a mobile virtual network is kind of incidental to the business model. We're a company that's mobile network, free mobile network for young people. It has the muscle and capability of an operator, but it has the soul and ethos of a media company. And us being a youth media company is much more descriptive of what the company is.
You say you're creating a pan-European network. Can your customers call other countries to other Blyk members, UK to Holland?
Well, right now, before the launch of Holland, there is no other country. So then there'll be 2 countries. At the moment, that can't be the case. We're setting up basic roaming agreements, but in the future, that's an opportunity. But nothing yet. So it's kind of the republic, if you like.
Question over there. Meanwhile, I have a question about the economics. You said in an advertorial, I guess it's an advertorial, blog posting, people get paid if they post this for you. Subscribers can save £300 a year. They get 2,000 ads for this £3,000. You say there is a click-through rate, now that's an internet term, but let's say click-through rate of about 40%. Can you keep this? And I might guess this is going down. How do you manage the economics? What is your critical mass, for example? Can you tell a bit more about the economics of your proposition?
Some of it, I would say, in terms of the model and exactly how it works. I do look at it in trade secrets. I don't know which you're referring to, but we don't pay bloggers, so just to be very clear about that. In terms of doing the overall calculation, and to this audience, I think I want to be very, very open about it. Anyone that has done mobile telecoms understands that there are many revenue streams. And so for Blyk, the revenue streams are advertising primarily, but there's also revenues from termination of calls in the network, right? Yeah. And this is significant, as well as people that text and call above the free limit, which is top-up revenue. So money's coming from many different places. I just want to say that the model is more complex, even though we communicate it this way. As far as response rates, we call response rates. So that's the rate of response to those kinds of questions that were sent. We're showing stable response rates between 20 and 30%, maybe about 25%. But less interesting to me than that average response rate is we're seeing very widespread in response as well, as high as 50 to 60%. In some of those questions that, okay, some of them were more us asking what the membership thinks, but the percentages were much higher, 50, 60%. And then some cases, when you do a poor question or something that people are not interested in that is irrelevant, the response rates are lower. But we are seeing stable response rates between 20 and 30%. Yes. Which I know to some of you, and that may sound like, how is that? That's so off the scale. But it's a very rationed media with this overtly commercial proposition that you've joined as a member. And you have to remember that background. It's not somebody spamming your inbox. You joined this deal. And that's in the background to you being on Blyk. It's part of the reason you're on Blyk is you get the ads. Really.
So do you manage the content of the ads? Can you say to an advertiser, no, we won't send this?
At the moment, we, of course, moderate everything on the network. It hasn't been an issue yet, but we're constantly learning with our partners. We have to adhere to all regulation in the advertising industry and also on the telco side. So with this telco muscle, media soul, regulation on both sides and rules on both sides.
Questions from the audience?
First of all, thank you very much for a very strong presentation. It sounds as you look with a very open-minded view to the market.
Thank you.
But therefore, I think, why do you limit yourself to this target group of 16 to 24? Because I can understand, maybe I'm a bit too old for your upcoming market, but what about the kids younger than 16?
It's a good question. We chose the group for 2 reasons primarily. As I quite very briefly when discussing youth alluded to, it's a group that marketers have a very difficult time reaching cost effectively. You can reach them, but you waste a lot of money in the sense of, I got 100,000 here, but I also lost 300,000 impressions. So media is very ineffective as a whole and quite fragmented to reach that group, I would say. This was one reason, so that marketers would be open to this kind of idea, because mobile marketing is new still. There are many perceptions around it, that it's difficult to do, I don't understand it, we haven't done it, it's a risk to my career to do mobile. And our job is to show it is simple, it's quick to do, it's very timely, you can run the campaign tomorrow, and get this group effectively, with effective reach. So that's number one. Number two is, we studied it. And overall, this group was more open to this kind of deal and this kind of communication on their mobile than older groups. There was more skepticism. And if I were running something with mobile advertising for an older age group, older age groups have more data usage on the whole, paid by their companies or however, and they're maybe looking at more banner advertising or search advertising. But for this group, clearly this messaging-based dialogue and the simplicity of that is what we believe in. So these two reasons. Marketers want to reach them, and it's hard and not cost-effective. And number two, they are actually more open to this model. But the way it works is this. If you join Blyk, then you can grow up with Blyk. So if you're 15 on the day that Blyk launches in the Netherlands, you have hope, because on the birthday you can come in. If you're 25 on the day Blyk launches, sorry, can't help you. But if you're in, you're in.
One more question. Meanwhile, I have a little question about targeting. I saw, for example, boxing advertisements for boxing matches. Yes. And there was a response rate for male, or say boys, of 80%, and for girls of about 10%. Yep. And you might ask, why do you send this message to girls? So can you target more specific and specific over time?
Certainly can. So age, the way Blyk works is it authenticates the member when they're coming in. So we actually check, much like if you were applying for a credit card, we check that are you the person you are online. And this verification happens, it can require different documentation or entering. So we know you are you, so to speak. And this means we know your age and gender as well. And then we know the history of your interaction with Blyk and with brands through Blyk. And so for this case, we can send male, female, age groups as well. But what we have found is that for most marketers, even the fact of being able to reach 16 to 24-year-olds effectively and tomorrow is interesting. So that the very hyper-level targeting is not yet that interesting. But we can do according to any dimension. Notice that a question also targets. Because it's quite effective to only then send the third message to the people that responded. So that's also a form of targeting, even though it's not normally thought of that way.
Okay, but do you think they can't do with targeting? They are not clever enough to use it, or they don't need it? More targeting.
Good question. I would ask the marketers themselves.
Yeah. You don't want to say they're not clever enough, I guess. One more question over there.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm running a mobile company with freeware, and I'm looking for community search. Do you have a freeware program where we can drop free ringtones on your platform, or like the App Store, just download new screensavers or that kind of tools?
Yep. We have both a small catalog of content that's free in the UK and then content that you can buy for which you need to top up. So the majority of the content is not free. What's free is texts and minutes at the moment, every month. But if you have an interesting model for how to make the economics work, let's talk.
I'm Martijn Benen, working for a media agency called Stroom. I want to know what's the price to reach my target audience for my clients.
Do you want to answer? Yes, let me let Eric answer.
You can come over here so everyone can listen to Erik Kipia, the new CEO of Blyk Netherlands.
Well, good morning. It's very clear that we're, of course, very clearly studying right now what the go-to-market model is going to be and what the economics are going to be. If you look at the model in the UK, there we have a rate of about 7p to 7 pence to reach a consumer. And when you get into the communication mode, there you can get into the MMS, and where you can send a more detailed and qualified message. There you get into ranges of 22 pence at this moment. But it's very clear that we're right now looking into the Dutch model. We're going to study what the offer is going to be and what the commercial offer is going to be. So these are all things that are right now under study, and when we have clarity on that and we know what the exact launch program is going to be, we'll be very happy to share it with you.
Can either of you tell what are the main learnings from the UK? So mistakes you won't have to make again in other countries.
And making different mistakes, right?
Yeah.
To pinpoint, let me think just for a moment. What would be the biggest learning?
Let me help you a bit.
Yeah?
Okay.
I think the biggest learning, for me at least personally, and I think it reflects on Blyk, is an underestimation of how much work there needs to be done to raise the understanding of how mobile can be made simple in the marketing community. I think there's still a sense that I get from the top creative prizes and the creative agencies, for example, that still, no matter how much we talk about integrated campaigns and all the rest, the canonical example of creativity is a good TV spot. It's a gorilla playing drums to an old nostalgic tune by Phil Collins. And then somehow at the end it's chocolate. Okay? And that's the picture of creativity. And we need to say that short conversations, a return of copywriting, and a return of relevance in that kind of way can be even more creative and more creatively powerful. And that is a very big challenge, because it almost goes one person at a time and one top creative at a time. And that I underestimated personally.
Yeah, so in the end, content might be king. Thank you very much, Marko, and thank you, the audience. At 1:15 p.m., 1:15, wordt u hier terug verwacht voor een zeer interessante uiteenzetting van wat TomTom van plan is te doen. Dank u wel, tot zover.